What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You have tuned in live to the Fly Sports and Entertainment Podcast in all the land. This is Stat Lines Matter. I am your host, Mark E. Stewart, and as always, I'm here with my partner in crime, Mr. Rob Hunter Jr. How are you doing today, my boy?
What up, my guy?
Man, you know, we got to get together and we got to recap the NFL. You know how we do it. I know you watched the games. I know you were in front of football all day yesterday, as I was. I have to start. It always pains me to start with Green Bay because I hate Green Bay so much as a Chicagoan. And that's, you know what I did? Just as a side note, I removed all other hate from all other teams and schools. And, you know, I used to hate the Cardinals and I used to hate the Knicks and the Pistons, you know, for obvious reasons. I focused all that hate on Green Bay. I literally sit there and just focus on them losing, and they never lose. They seem to always find a way to win. Yesterday was no exception. They got a lead, and then all of a sudden, Baltimore started to battle back, and they still found a way to win. What was your take on, how did you feel about the kid, the young kid? Because I didn't know a lot about that kid, Tyler Huntley, coming into the game. How did you feel about his play, and do you see any future for him, or is he like a kind of a backup guy?
No, I think, well, first off, you know, in reference to your devoting your energy, maybe reverse it. Like maybe start to root for them and just see how that works.
No.
Like if you root for Green Bay, well, rooting against them, they got 3 straight NFC since Matt LaFleur took over. They have 3 straight NFC titles. You know, I probably I'm just saying, sneakily try it. You don't have to tell anyone that's what you're doing. Just pump the fist every time they do something great, and maybe it may go left. Maybe it may reverse it. That's all I'm saying. But to answer your question,
God doesn't want that for my life.
So okay. You think he wants Green Bay to win? I mean, that's happening in your life.
No. I'm not saying that. I said what God wants for my life is to be against Green Bay. Now the outcomes, I don't know. He wants me to be against them. I don't know about anything else after that. God didn't put that on me.
God put it in your heart, just like
in my heart.
The gift of business.
Exactly.
He gave the gift of hatred towards Green Bay.
Of strong dislike. God wouldn't give me hate. I added the hate myself. He just gave me the dislike.
So watching Tyler Huntley yesterday, it was a bit surprising, just simply because you have a guy. I mean, of course, I watched him a little bit at Utah State. He was this kind of quarterback. Incidentally, he's the
first. Was he Utah or Utah State? He was at Utah or State. Whatever Utah State is. Okay.
The red guy. Yeah, the red guys. So I think
that's Utah.
Yes, right. Utah. That's right. You're right. Yeah,
Utah State is blue.
Blue. Yes, yeah, that's right. So the red team, the Utes.
The Utes, yeah.
The Utes are red. Yeah, I mean, watching a guy, I mean, what's not to like? I mean, I think that if you throw 2 touchdowns and rush for 2 touchdowns, first player in Baltimore Ravens history, considering who you're coming in for, the guy that actually does that, yeah, I think he did himself. Hey, look, okay, I'll tell you this. I think he did more than Taysom Hill has done for himself in the NFL, like put more on film just in one game. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to dislike, and I think that Harbaugh did him a disservice and the rest of his squad. I mean, considering they've lost 3 straight games and you have an opportunity to to reverse the tide and get, and particularly with the backup quarterback, and considering what you guys were facing, you had injuries on the offensive line and, coming in shorthanded, and for Tyler Huntley to play that way, especially in the first half, got a lot of they couldn't stop him in the first half, particularly on third down, a lot of third down completions. So, yeah, I think Tyler Huntley is for me the takeaway, even though, there was the 2-point conversion. I think that's the 3rd time in 2 weeks that he's done that, Harbaugh. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to dislike about what happened with Tyler Huntley. But, I mean, Harbaugh inserted, because you're at home, right? The momentum's going your way. You kick the extra point, and I think you just try to ride Tyler Huntley into an improbable victory. That's what I would have done. The analytics also say that too. The analytics don't say go for it, right? Go for 2 when you're an extra point away. They say go for 2 if you're down, say 15, and you score that touchdown, which can cut it if you get the 2-point version, which can cut it to 7. That's when the analytics say go for it. It don't say go for it when you're down 7 and you need an extra point to tie it. So I heard people talking about the analytics. That's not what the analytics say. The analytics say you're down 15, you score the touchdown, you go for 2, cut it to 7.
Right. And then if you don't get it, you know that you need 2 more scores.
There you go.
You'll know what you need at that point, even though, you know what I mean? So, yeah. That ended up being a really good game to watch, but it wasn't a great outcome for a Bears fan. But what it did do, if you support Green Bay, is I think in a week where you start to see some movement, you start to see some other teams lose, it gave them the inside track to where, you know, if things continue on, you're gonna have to go through Lambeau to get to the Super Bowl, and I think that's gonna be tough when you look at all the other teams that are sort of competing are either warm weather teams or indoor teams, and not used to. I don't want to say they're not used to, but they're not Green Bay. It's not Green Bay weather, so that'll be how that ends up. You know, with the teams that are following behind them, that'll be interesting to see how that ends up shaping up. Before this week's action, or actually to start this week's action, Kansas City started the week off playing the Los Angeles Chargers, and for the first time in a long time, Patrick Mahomes went off. I think they're starting to crack the code on how to manage that, what the defenses are giving them, and running the ball and sort of taking what they're giving them in the run game until they have to come out of that and then start to bring safeties up and support the run, and then he's cutting them up. You know, I think he threw for 400 and change, 4 touchdowns, had a big game. Kelsey had a big game. And much like Green Bay, that win, they were able to get that win, sit at home and watch everything play out. And now I feel like they have the inside track to the Super Bowl going through them in Arrowhead. Did you get a chance to see that game? Because I know sometimes midweek games are a little bit difficult for you because you got, you know, kids and you got basketball, you got a varsity basketball player on your hands playing at one of the top programs. Shout out to Robbie the Third. I'm going to just say my own shout out. But with that being said, did you get a chance to see that game or read up on it at all?
Yes, I watched it from the hospital bed during my.
You wanna explain? I wasn't gonna bring it up, but since you brought it up,
so I had emergency what do they call it, appendicitis. I had appendectomy if we're gonna go with the correct medical term, and so I watched it all the way until I believe it was 28-28, and the anesthesia was still heavy on me. So, but anyway, yes, I did watch the game. Yes, Mahomes had the whole offense had a big game, but particularly Tyreek Hill, and you mentioned Travis Kelce. But Tyreek Hill had a big game too. And you know, to sit back and think about it, right? And we talked about this a week ago with when we had Tab on, and we asked, you know, we were saying, you know, he asked us, I believe, who did we see as the favorite, and both of us said, hey man, Mahomes is seemingly finding his way. They were 3-4 at one point during the season. Now they are 10-4. They rattled off 7 straight games. I'm not a mathematician, but that feel like 7 straight. And then you had the Patriots on Saturday night lose, which vaulted them to the top of the AFC. So they do have the inside track to that, you know, the much coveted home field advantage throughout the playoffs, as do Green Bay. Green Bay now seemingly has probably for all intents and purposes, you know, closed it out. They got 2 home games to the next 2 games are 2 home games, and their final games against Detroit, and they're 6-0 at home this year. So you have what's shaping up to be the QBs that have done it before and have continued to do it are rising. What they always talk about, right? In December, they're rising to the occasion in December. The elements don't seem to bother them as much. The moment's not too big. Muscle memory starts to take over. And, you know, you had Mahomes go on the road. They played in SoFi, right? Mahomes went
Yes.
on the road and took care of business in a game that the scoreboard was lighting up, and he had one more answer than they did.
Yeah, and I think interestingly enough, I think Casey's defense is playing decent. Um, you know, sometimes you can't judge off the point. Sometimes when they needed to get a stop, and maybe this Thursday game maybe was standing a little bit, but Kansas City's playing better on defense, and I think that also gives them a good chance to go ahead and push and win the title. Speaking of quarterbacks that always do it, and we're used to doing it, but didn't do it last night. There was a little bit of a stinker game that played on Sunday night. The Saints against the Bucs. I never thought that I would see Tom Brady get 0 points at home, no matter who he was playing for. Like, I always just assume he'll give you, especially in a game that it seemed like they were down by a lot, but they were in the game. Like, they could have come back and win that game, but they literally couldn't get anything going offensively. Now, they lost a lot of guys to injury, but you still assume, Brady has that thing that Michael Jordan had where you always assume that he will find a way to get the game. It just didn't play out that way yesterday.
Yeah, Brady, first time he's been shut out in 255 games. 255 games. But the Saints have seemingly been his kryptonite. 0-4 against the Saints. So that's two since he's been in the division, which is 2 years. He's yet to beat them in the regular season. So
Wow.
Yes, that is pretty remarkable. So yeah, seeing I believe he lost his 2 starting receivers in the first half. Looks like he's lost Godwin for the season with the ACL tear. And then Leonard Fournette lost in the second half. You would still think they would at least be able to manage, at least a field goal attempt, a field goal, put up 3. But never fear. They play the Carolina Panthers next week. If Cam Newton is up under center, you can go ahead and book. You can go ahead and book that victory for Tampa Bay next week. So if anyone would deserve some sort of clemency, if you will, or some sort of mulligan, it would definitely be him. And also it was the first game I believe in 6 or 7 games this season at home where they were held under 30 points. They were held way under 30. Nobody saw that coming. Vegas probably made a ton of money off that game last night. I think
Vegas did well this week overall.
Yes, Vegas did very well, but I wouldn't have. I know that I was trying to set my lineups, and I saw that they were playing at home in DFS, so I automatically started looking for Brady and grabbing his 2 receivers, and you couldn't do it because that game was slated for the night slate, and I was playing the afternoon and the late afternoon and the afternoon slate, and that game wasn't available. So to your point, or to my point, I just thought you're gonna book at least 3 touchdown passes for Brady at home,
sure,
and it didn't happen. So, but next week,
it's also a bad break for Godwin because if I'm not mistaken, he's a free agent. And it's 2 things that I think if you're an NFL player, you don't want, whether you're going to the playoffs or not. You don't want late season injuries because it means late season surgery and off season, recovery and rehab and all that. And you definitely don't want it in the contract year because it muddies that conversation. He should be fine because there will be someone out there that would want him, or even Tampa Bay figuring out how to keep him. I believe, don't quote me on this because I didn't research this, but I think he's a free agent. I think he even might be playing on a tag right now too. I don't know. But if he is a free agent, that's a bad break. One, because he's going to be in surgery over Christmas. He's going to be rehabbing when he probably want to be on the beach and relaxing, and not being able to play in the postseason to help his team win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, obviously, and then but the Bucs looks like they're going to get Antonio Brown back next week, so they'll be fine in that department.
Assuming that he can stay on the field and not do anything. I don't know. Not fake any more vaccinations.
That's always the wild card, but I think he's one of those guys that when he feels like he's needed by someone like Brady, I think that'll give him a sense of accountability and a sense of wanting to step up because they need him to step up now. So he won't be the third guy. He'll be a main guy. And I think that a lot of times when you feel that sense of inclusion and you feel that sense of, hey man, we need you to step up, they want to be. Sometimes those guys want to be called upon and say, hey, yeah, I stepped up to the plate. I helped my team out. And it serves their ego somewhat. Like, hey, I'm here for you, but I also, it feels good to be needed, and he'll be stepping in at the right time because when they were having all that success without him, Godwin's got 98 catches, well on his way with 3 games left to crushing 100 catches again. It's kind of like, you sitting back and somebody like him, like, man, they kind of moving on without me, and I think
definitely.
Him being able to, step back in, particularly, in that role with his ability, I look for him, next week to probably have, at least 1 touchdown and, probably above 70 yards catching. I mean, I don't necessarily quote me on that, but if you're playing prize picks, that's a big out of that.
Yeah, I think those are as reasonable too because it's like he's sitting back there with a quarterback who can do what he wants. You know what I mean?
Right.
And go where he wants and all that. So look for him to step up and see increased numbers over the next couple of weeks. On Saturday night, there was a game. It was the Colts against the Patriots. And you alluded to this a little bit earlier that the Patriots were on a bit of a roll. And then all of a sudden, and I remember looking at the line and going, why are the Colts favored? Even, you get 3 at home, but I'm like, the way the Pats were playing, I was just like, I didn't see it. And then it was like almost like as soon as the game started, you were like, oh, it's gonna be one of those games. But and the difference is you didn't have Brady over there for the Patriots, so you didn't have that same sort of sense that they're gonna find a way to bring this back and find a way to get this done. They really, I don't know if the game was as close ultimately. I just felt like the Colts did to the Pats what the Pats have been doing to everybody else, which was like be really physical. They ran the ball, didn't get a lot from the quarterback, but you didn't get the big mistake that cost them the game, and they were able to get past it. And now all of a sudden you start thinking about the Colts in the playoffs, that run game, Jonathan Taylor, what they do on offense, and then that defense. That's always seems to be a formula for teams that can challenge. Now, I'm not saying they can challenge Kansas City, but I kind of written the Colts off, and now I have to kind of put them back in the mix based on how things are going.
Yeah.
Did you see that game? And then also, I think it brought Mac Jones. Mac Jones reminded everybody he's a first-year player.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and
respectfully,
look, not a lot of first-year players have 7-game winning streaks, which was snapped obviously last week, but sets up a huge showdown next week between the Bills and the Patriots, which is going. Man, there's a lot of big games next week. There's the Bengals, Ravens. There's a lot of stuff on the line next week, and this is one of them. But yeah, I mean, I think that for the Colts, I think for a large portion, not necessarily this season per se, even though at times, particularly earlier in the season, but they've made stuff harder than what they needed it to be. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, they were giving Hines carries and having him and giving him a whole series to play, and I'm like, why are they doing that? Why just give the ball to your number 1 pick, to your number 1 draft pick, and just see? And they've been doing that over the last, let's say, 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, true.
And he's been stepping up to the challenge. It blew my mind why you were seeing Hines and the other running back, which his name escapes me right now, why they were going the other route. But yes, they are. So yes, they are actually built. To your point, they are actually built for the playoffs. I mean, anytime you have a running game like that in a defense, in defense travels and running games travel. So they're set up to. Right now, I'm looking at it. It says that the Colts have an 81% chance to make the playoffs. So, I mean, looks like we'll definitely be seeing them. Things change fast from week to week, particularly with that 17th game. But They seem poised to. It was a big win for them, and they seem poised to at least make some noise in the early rounds.
Yeah, and I think they got that offensive line. Shout out to Quentin Nelson, a nasty interior offensive lineman from Notre Dame. I got to shout him out. He's one of my guys. But once he got there and anchored that line, they just got nasty. They were a horrible unit, and then they became a really good unit. And you have a really good physical back that can get things done. And as long as you don't put that game and start asking Carson Wentz to do stuff, because he's had a solid season. Still not a believer in him in clutch times. I've seen him make some really dumb throws. I think he will continue to do that. And I think if the coach is smart, they can turn around and give the ball to the kid from Wisconsin and see where that leads you. I do have to talk a little bit about your Falcons, not so much because of your Falcons, but because they played a playoff team, or a team that I think has sort of worked their way at least back into the graphic of teams that can make the playoffs, and that's the 49ers. I want to talk a little bit about them because they're another team that in many ways has the formula to be able to make a running game. It doesn't matter what running back they put back there, whether it's Wilson yesterday or Mitchell the weeks before. They have a solid running game. Jimmy G's whatever. We talked about that in the last week. But when you got Kittle and you got those two guys, they're figuring out ways to get Deebo Samuels the ball and Brandon Ayuk. Those guys are making plays. And, people talk about George Kittle, much more athletic player than your typical tight end. We see him, and it brings back, flashes of other types of tight ends. But there was a play yesterday where he got the ball, like it was basically not a bubble screen, but it was like a quick screen out. And he put the foot in the ground and turned it up before that defensive player could even make a move. And I was really shocked on how quick and agile he was. And even with all that being said, he's still a really good blocker. And he plays a game where if you could, create a ideal tight end, he's the guy because he can play in the pass game and he can play in the run game. He helps him in the run game as well. But they're an interesting team, I think, as they move forward. They might have gotten a little too deep in the hole, but with Arizona sort of playing back to the pack a little bit, it maybe opens it up for them to get one of those coveted wild card positions.
84% chance to make the playoffs.
So they're in the convo. They're more than in the convo. So,
84%.
But they got to keep it going. They got to keep it going, though.
And they've won 5 of 6 games. Yeah. So, what we're talking about, take the name out of it. Take the quarterback's name out of it. You start winning in December at that kind of clip, you got an opportunity. And we've seen guys throughout the years, Eli Manning barely, get into the playoffs and find a rhythm and win and go on the road and win all those playoff games and then get to the Super Bowl and, take down the whole thing. These things have happened before. It's not uncharted territory. Jimmy Garoppolo, you say whatever you want. I mean, he was 18 for 23 yesterday, 1 touchdown. You got George Kittle, who is running over angry black people, which is always a plus. You got Deebo Samuel, literally Deeboing dudes when he gets the ball in his hand. I mean, he is what Cordell Patterson on his best day wants to be, is trying to be. That's Deebo. I mean, you give it to him in the backfield. He can line up at the X, he can line up at the Z, he can line up in the slot. You can put him anywhere when he's got the ball in his hands. And when he's going good, everybody goes good. Brandon Ayuk, it could be Jeff Wilson, it could be Elijah Mitchell, it could be whoever. So 5 of 6 is a real number. But when you start doing that in December, that's when, because the playoffs is all about momentum. I mean, we know that. Yeah. And if with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays, and you got a quarterback who's not turning the ball over, and you got a decent running game, and you got literally guys doing whatever it takes to win. You got guys lining up wherever you want them to line up. It seemed like a very egoless team, and it's a team
right
that could, you look around. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see them in an NFC Championship game.
No, it wouldn't shock me either. And I would also say they're built to be able to go to a Green Bay. Like you said, it travels. The way they play travels because they don't want to throw it. They're not trying to throw it 50 times a game no matter what. And when they do a good job of getting it to Debo any type of way, bubble screens, handoffs, tosses, like I think what Debo's done, to your point about Cordero Patterson, is that he's mastered his work in the pass game, whereas that's always been a bit of a bugaboo for Cordero. And I think much props to your Falcons for being, I think, the first team to figure out how to really use him and gain, be able to take his skills and gain as a team as a result of that. Your Falcons were probably on the fringe, and I would guess that loss yesterday kind of, sealed the fate. Maybe not officially, but, essentially for them this year. Just briefly, is there anything that you feel as a fan you would like to see upgraded, changed, that puts you in the right direction? Do you feel like you're close? How do you feel about the coaching job? Any positive that you're taking from this season at all?
No. And I know, and you're not supposed to have one word answers when you put on when you're doing a show or an interview.
No, I mean sometimes it's like that.
But no, and you know that. I think they need to free Matt Ryan. I think he needs to go to a different city, go live with a coaching staff and an offensive line that could, give him some time to throw. I still think he's probably got a year or two left, that if you put him with a team that has great weapons, a team, like let's say the Vikings, for instance, the Vikings have great weapons, not necessarily a Hall of Fame quarterback. Matt Ryan is a Hall of Fame quarterback. So if you give him, Thielen, you give him Jefferson, you give him Dalvin Cook, even the tight end Conklin has been making some plays. I think that's a team that's on the precipice of really good quarterback play. That might be able to take it the whole way. So So to answer your question, no, I don't. I would like for some changes, and we talked offline about what they could and should be, but no, I haven't been inspired by Arthur Smith, the Prince of FedEx, this season.
Listen, my take is a little bit different. I think he has a team that is not very talented by NFL standards. There's some players there, obviously. What's that?
They're a reflection of the leadership. He's not.
Well, I think they play hard for him, and I think they've managed to be in games. Listen, if they end up 6-11, you got to figure out this new 17. If they end up 6-11, that's not impressive. But if you get that team and they play sort of 9-8 ball, 8-9 ball, when you look at that talent, I think that's not a bad coaching job. Speaking of coaching jobs, I would like to quickly talk about the Dolphins-Jet game. Not a game that most people watched. I had my eye on this game because I'm a Tua guy, and I wanted to really check in on Tua to see how he's doing, because I always feel like there's a narrative around Tua, and then the narrative builds about the guy, and then when you look at it, it's kind of not as what everybody said it was, but then nobody's going to come back and go, well, maybe we had some of this wrong or whatever. Yesterday was a very typical Tua game in that he almost lost it for you, but he won it for you. And it was their 6th straight win. I think since he's returned from injury, they lost 3 straight. All games they could have won, or at least 2 of them they could have won, and then they ran off 6. Now, those 6 against pretty bad teams, but 6 wins is 6 wins, and they're still in the graphic for the playoffs, I think, sitting at 7-6, I believe, or 7-7. What was your take on, did you watch that game and see that comeback and see the flow of that game? Were you able to kind of check into that game? Because that game had some twists and turns to it.
Yeah. I watched that game. I did watch that game. And I watched Duke Johnson, of all people, get super loose on the Jets defense. Yeah, I think Tua was late on a lot of those throws, particularly in the first half. Was pretty. I was surprised because the throws were there to be made. He just wasn't making them. And then you had the Jets it's a game that I believe that game ended 31-24, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And
Tua threw the pick six, just to refresh your memory. I think the Dolphins had the game. They had the ball and a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter, looking to run the ball and get out of there. And then Tua goes pick six.
And it was an easy pick six too.
Yeah, it was an easy walk-in, one that you or I could have made. Well, maybe you could have made, I could have made it. But and then tied the game, and then Tua came back in, responded, drove him down, got the touchdown, and then the defense stiffened up and held him.
Was that the pass to the lineman? Was that that play? The pass to the offensive line or the defensive lineman, the little out route, and he dove into the stands afterwards. I mean, look. I watched a decent amount of that game. I thought that the Dolphins should have won it going away, considering the quarterback play had been putrid with the Jets, and it just they just seemingly would not, and they would not go away. That game was tied for 17-17 at the end of the first half, and I thought that it would have been a better showing for Gesicki, and also for Devontae Parker, but Tua didn't have his best game yesterday. The holes were there. The Jets defense was the Jets defense, but I think that Tua just didn't have his best day. And Duke Johnson was running the ball. Even Myles Gaskin averaged 5 yards a carry in that game. So
yeah,
the run game was working, but he did miss some plays in the first half, and they are still alive at 7-7.
And I think in many ways, Tua might be playing for his next team or auditioning for his next team. I think that Miami, I could be mistaken, but I think they still have some draft capital enough to go get Deshaun Watson. And I think the longer we go without hearing Deshaun's name in an indictment in a sentence together, the more likely it will be that he gets traded in the offseason, probably before the draft. And then we'll see if Miami or Philly, who also has some draft capital, will want to make a deal to bring him in, because I think both of those teams would improve tremendously with Deshaun. Although I actually like Jalen and I like two Alabama quarterbacks. I think they belong in the league, but Deshaun is on another level. And if he can tone down the whatever little tugging action that he appreciates at the massage parlor, if he can get a handle on that weirdo fetish, I think he'll get back to playing some good football.
Hey, the weirdo that's subjective. I mean, that's it's only weird.
Did you read the reports?
No, I didn't read the reports.
It's weirdo. It's weirdo. Him and Kraft might need to hang out. Let's just put it that way. They like to get rubbed on, and they want the extras. They want all the ups and extras.
Well, if you asked if that move could be if Deshaun ended up in a Falcon uniform, look, Deshaun, we have plenty of massage parlors here. Plenty.
Yeah, I think the two destinations that I look for him is Miami and the Eagles, just because both of those teams have multiple first round picks. They have things that they could play with.
And Deshaun said he wants to go to Miami.
And exactly, and I know in Miami, he can have himself a good time.
He can get that thing tugged. They got plenty of tug.
All the tug you want. My Steelers, and it was an ugly. If you like offense, it was just an ugly game. If you like defense and weather, Steeler weather, bear weather, all that, I'm not as a Steeler fan and Bear fan, I'm not with all that. I don't like 13-9 games, but that's certainly what we got from the Titans and the Steelers yesterday. And the Titans seem to not like the prosperity of leading the division and doing what they're doing. And I think they had it going for a minute. They had some big wins, and then all of a sudden they just the Steelers. Listen, I give Mike T a lot of credit. He found a way to win. And he's finding a way to win. He's grinding it out, but it ain't pretty. Like, this is not the best Steeler team ever, but they're still in it. They're still in the graphic, and I'm not counting them out. But Ben looks old. Claypool is, I don't know what Claypool is doing. He needs to come back to South Bend and re-up and figure out how to conduct himself on the field. He's doing all the antics and stuff. I don't know nothing about that.
He
But
wants at the practices and
yeah, it's like, man, stay out of the news, man. Like that is just not what you do. Like you got a contract to play for, man. Stay with it.
And the Titans, obviously, they one win. If they win yesterday, they're at the top of the AFC. They lose, they sink to the bottom. You want to talk about a swing? They sink from being able to have the inside track, the home field advantage throughout the playoffs to number 3, and up goes the Chiefs, and I believe the Pats are number 2. And
right.
You just have these these swings that guys just not once again you got guys in December not stepping up, and you look at Ben Roethlisberger, a guy who has stepped up in December before, stepping up again. Now, was it pretty?
He's gutting it out.
Now you watched him. I watched him yesterday chastise guys going back to the bench, like, hey, you're not doing it right, because whatever Ben is saying, that's probably the way that the play's supposed to unfold.
Exactly.
And they pulled out a win. They're still in it. And you have these teams that look good, and in their defense, right? You still have, even though they had a 100-yard rusher yesterday in Deontay Foreman, there is no Derrick Henry. There is no, and Julio is just doing what Julio's done over the past 2-3 years. He'll come in for one play, and then I'm taking off the rest of the game. And so you have, and AJ Brown.
But that's not. But look, in fairness, though, that's not really what Julio's done, because even when he used to do that, play a play, go out of play, he was still managing to get catches and accumulate statistics. He's not even accumulating statistics anymore, and AJ Brown is out. So it's like,
that's what I'm saying.
What's happened with Julio?
I think what I've been telling you, what I've been saying, what's been happening with Julio, and I understand there have been some stats, but Julio, me observing it, being a Falcon fan all the way up till last year, Julio seemingly don't really want to play football no more. I think he wants to get the paycheck, but I don't think he wants to actually play anymore. I don't know if it's his body. I don't know if it's the foot problems, his hamstring issues. I'm not in his circle. But what I do know is that Julio, and I've said this, he will make a catch on second down. If let's say it's 2nd and 15, he make a catch. Now it's 3rd and 5, a 10-yard catch. He's going out of the game.
He's tapping the helmet.
He checks out of the game. Now, my whole thing has been, bro, if you don't want the ball again, that's fine. But stay out there. So, because the defense is going to play different with you just on the field. You ain't got to get the ball, but don't check out of the game. And right. I think that Julio doesn't feel a sense of I don't know if it's loyalty or a sense of accountability to Tennessee. And I'm not saying he's faking anything. It just seems disinterested in competing at this stage in his career. And so I say all that to say that Tannehill, is dealing with, basically a new same thing that Brady was dealing with yesterday, the second half of the game. He's dealing with injuries. He's dealing with trying to get a team that doesn't necessarily. We got, like, what's that kid's name? West Nook Bryan, or whatever his name is. But you got these receivers out there that haven't seen a whole lot of reps in training camp with the ones. Now they're playing with the ones. Now they're out there trying to make plays against, the Steelers. That's still a live dog in the Steelers, and they just weren't able to pull it off. So,
yeah, don't get me wrong. It definitely wasn't an easy game for Tennessee to think that they could go in and get that game. But it's one that if you're trying to make a run, you got to figure out how to go get. And I think you're absolutely right about Julio. And I've never been one of those guys that sit at the house on my couch with my scotch and my cigar, talking about who's mailing it in and who's not. But I can reasonably compare it to how he's played in the past. And he does look disinterested. He looks disinterested at best. Like, checked out.
And to your point, he's on a Super Bowl contending team. It ain't like you with the
Right.
Falcons where we ain't got a shot. Well,
Right.
y'all got a chance to seize control of the entire conference with
Right.
that win, and it just don't seem to just float his boat.
Right. I want to talk about, and I want to put these two teams together in this discussion. I want to talk about the Cowboys game against the Giants, and I want to talk about the Cardinals game against Detroit. I do not want to talk about Detroit, and I do not want to talk about the Giants. Interesting thing that's happening, right? I think the Cowboys are on a little bit of an offensive slump because I think we've grown to see them as a high flying, they have all these weapons and they don't seem to be producing. Dak is a little bit off his game, although yesterday he was decent, if not great. He was, above average and he played decently. Same with Kyler Murray. But the difference is in this slump, Dallas is winning their games. The Cardinals are dropping games at key times during the season after sort of getting out and kind of rolling along, winning games without Kyler looking like he was in an MVP conversation. Now all of a sudden it's like, which one of these teams, like Dallas is looking more like the contender and the Cardinals are looking more like the pretender. But I think if you had asked that question 2 weeks ago, maybe the answers would be reversed. I like the Cowboys. They're kind of laying in the weeds. They get the discussion because they're the Cowboys, but people are sort of focused on other teams. The thing that the Cowboys are doing, they're taking the ball away. They're making big plays on defense, and Dan Quinn has got those guys flying around. You're familiar with what Dan Quinn can do as a defensive guy, and you're seeing a lot of that on the field, and they got guys that are going to get the ball. I think that makes them dangerous, especially if they get it going back offensively.
Yeah, and that's totally possible, right? I mean, you got a guy like Kyler Murray back there. It's the third loss in 5 games, and you go, okay, well, we've rattled off some losing streaks here and some winning streaks, but I think the most alarming thing is that 2 of those losses have come in playoff clinching games, right? With the Rams, and obviously this one is probably for me more telling than them all. I mean, the Detroit Lions obviously had won 1 game, and you had an opportunity. This was a layup. Obviously there aren't any given Sunday, right? But you feel like a team that has played as poorly. I mean, Jared Goff was out there looking like the Jared Goff at Cal,
Right.
And I think, and you look at Kyler Murray, honestly, I just think, and I'm not making any excuses for him. I think he came back too early. I mean, he had 4 rushes yesterday for 0.8 yards, I believe it was 4 rushes. And that's just part of his game. And you saw him yesterday, body language wasn't as good after some of those sacks, going to the sideline, and when that's happening, them parole braids, them parole plaits don't look as good. They start to look like you need to do something else with your hair. Just don't look as before it's kind of eccentric, it's kind of cool looking. Now looking like, hey man, you got to change this. If you want to get parole, you got to do your hair different. And I think, I think that so and so a little small side note. I know you want to talk Detroit, but in Detroit winning that game has now moved out of the number 1 draft spot, and Jacksonville has now assumed control of the number 1 pick. So they can't get right.
And Detroit has played hard in a lot of games, and
I know
this is not. Yeah, and I know this is not. It's not college. It's not high school. There's no participation trophies. Parcells said you are what your record says you are, and they are 111 or 211, excuse me, in 1, I guess, or whatever the record is, something 11-1 or 1-1, whatever. But they play hard. They've been in some games. They bring it to you, and I'll be honest, that game wasn't even close. They beat the brakes off the Cardinals, and from the beginning, the second quarter, the middle, the end, all elements of the game. That wasn't ever even really a ball game. If you watched it, it was like they brought it to them in every phase. And so you give that team credit. Like you said, any given Sunday, in the NFL. But I think if you're fancying yourself as a team that can go all the way, that you don't drop that game. Even if you're not at your best, like this is what we've seen from the Rodgers teams and the Brady teams is a way to figure out a way to get it into overtime and kick a field goal, get out of there, and regroup. And that's what I'm seeing in Dallas. Like, I know that in Dallas, there's a lot of, we hate Dallas. People hate Dallas because they hate Dallas. And that's the only reason they hate Dallas, because they always have. And so they lose a little objectivity. I'm saying this team is different because of the defense. Dak may not be playing at the clip that we saw him play, but that might be better for them as a team, that he's not throwing for 400 and 500 yards and needing to throw 50 times. Getting him to play in a controlled game. They ran the ball well yesterday with both backs, and even with Ezekiel Elliott is a little banged up. They still ran him. They ran well. They got the completions when they needed to, and the defense got the ball back. And I like that formula in December and in the playoffs. So we'll keep an eye on Dallas. Real quick before we get out of here, let's get some predictions. This is an odd week because 4 games due to COVID got moved. Two. There was a typical Monday night game, then there's another Monday night game that got added, and then there's 2 Tuesday night games. So with that being said, let's get some predictions for what we're going to see tonight. Tonight's game is, I want to say, Browns Raiders and Bears Vikings.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, and are you taking the betting line into consideration?
No, I don't know what the line is on the games tonight. I would imagine it moved a great deal with Nick Mullins under center. Now here's maybe a little bit of an ironic stat. Ironic stat is that Nick Mullins' completion percentage on his career is higher than Baker Mayfield. Now, what I don't think do I think Nick Mullins is better than Baker Mayfield? No. But what we saw yesterday, and Tyrone Huntley, and for one game, these guys can be a bit of a live dog. I will take the healthier team. Jarvis Landry's out tonight. So I'm taking the healthier team, but I still look for it to be a close game. Given the Bears and the Vikings, I'm just going to take the Vikings until that line can block a little bit better for Fields, and he can continue to, obviously he can get the ball downfield, right? I mean, we saw that in some of those plays. In Jakeem Grant, you could hit him seemingly on just a little small dig, and he could take it the distance. But I'm going with the Vikings in that game. At least for
what about on Tuesday's game, Seattle Rams, Washington Eagles?
Give me the Rams until I mean, what I saw last week against the Cardinals, and then you giving them a couple extra days rest. Yeah, I'll take the Rams at home again at SoFi against Seattle, and then I still don't believe that Russ is all the way healthy. Same way I really don't think that Kyler's healthy, and not to double back, but you think that knock on Kyler, right, coming out of college is he big enough to handle some of these hits that he's going to be taking, and I think that obviously,
especially because they want to run him too. It's not like they actually, the difference between him and Russ is that Russ can stand back in the pocket, and then when he does get out and they do anything designed, he goes down. Like Kyler runs the ball when they're going and they got it going. He's running the ball a lot.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I'll take the Rams, and with the Washington Eagles. Who do you like?
I think I like the Eagles in that game. I don't believe that Washington has their quarterback, and I think like what Washington is proving is the importance of a quarterback. With all respect to Hanke, if that's your guy, you're coming into the season with Ryan Fitzmagic as your guy, you're only going so far in the league. Right. And so now you're at your third level of that. Give me the Eagles for that reason. Nothing other than that. I think the Browns find a way defensively running the ball. And Nick, like you said, Nick Mullins, because he's gotten some playing time, with Washington, with San Francisco, can come in and get you a win. The question is, how much time has he had to prepare? I think they've known that both the starter and the backup are going to be out. Baker and the other guy be out for a while. So I'm gonna go with the Browns in a mild upset. I'm definitely going big Vikings. The Bears are a combination of decimated by COVID, guys with injuries, and then a fractured locker room. And that's not a good combination in December. So I think the Bears I think you got guys on that team looking to not get hurt. Allen Robinson, is some very damning film of him out there going around, of him not blocking for Fields downfield on plays that Fields could have broke if he had gotten a block. And there's just a lot of bad body language, if you will, on that team. So even if the Bears were fully healthy, I would put everything on the Vikings.
So I have the lines. Okay, so
what's the numbers?
Okay, so we got Raiders -2.5 on the road, so 2.5. So basically that's even, right? Because the home team gets 3 points.
Wait, who's at home? The Browns or the Raiders?
The Browns.
The Browns are at home, but the Raiders are
favored by 2.5. Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically like 5, because really the 3 is supposed to go to Cleveland.
The home team.
Cleveland.
Right.
Okay. So the odds makers really like the Raiders. Okay, got it.
So then now you have Vikings favored by 6.5, Rams favored by 7, and Eagles favored by 6.5 again.
Yeah. So on the Rams, I like the Rams in a convincing manner. I like the Vikings in a convincing manner. I like the Browns in an upset, and I like the Eagles.
So coming into this week, right, there were 14 playoff positions that were available. Only one got clinched, right? And so essentially there's 28 teams still alive for the playoffs coming into tonight. So saying that the plot is thick, after week 15 in the NFL, will be putting it lightly. So here's if I was going to take a dog in this game, I would take the Seahawks, just given Russell Wilson at that 6 and that 7 number looks good to me, -7. So I would take the Seahawks +7. In fact, I'll take the Seahawks.
Is it 6.5 or is it 7?
It's 7. So 6.5 Bears in the Bears game. So Vikings -6.5. Eagles -6.5, Rams -7.
Gotcha. Okay.
I like
I'm staying right where I am on that. I like the Rams convincingly. I like the Vikings convincingly. I like the Eagles to cover, but I'm not sure they're gonna actually get the number, which means I'm really saying that I like Washington, but I like the Eagles. So I'm going to stick with the Eagles, but it wouldn't surprise me if that game was closer. And like I said, I like the Browns to find a way to get out of there with a win. So that's where we are. So we're going to document that. We'll have the results of that on our Thursday show. But listen, man, great recapping the games with you. It's always fun to sort of take the things that you've been thinking in the game. And like we would normally do this on the phone. Like we'd just be like, what did you think of last night? But now we get to sit here and do it with the people who check in with us and everything. Listen, like always, we thank you for hanging in. I always say, if you're still here at this time, God bless you. In the meantime, come to our YouTube page, like, subscribe, lock in for the notifications so you know when we're doing things. Also check in on all our socials, which is @StatLinesMatter on IG, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere. Man, listen, we're excited for this week coming up. NBA, you got the big Christmas games happening this week. If we can get guys out of protocol, and you got the playoffs heating up in the NFL, man. So it's a great time to be a sports fan. It's a great time to be Mark and Rob, who get to watch all the sports and enjoy all the sports. And man, I thank you guys for tuning in. On behalf of my partner, Rob Hunter, I am Mark Stewart, and this is Stat Lines Matter.
Bad boy. I ain't come for games. Say it to my face. Say it to my face. I ain't come for games. Say it to my face. Say it to my face.